Miss your old familiar friends, but waiting just around the bend. Everywhere you look, there's a heart, there's a heart.
Okay, we'll start with this. Per tweet from Michael Benson, Bob Arum has revealed they have now started talks for Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook to potentially happen at the MGM Grand Bubble in November. Manny Pacquiao is still the first choice, but there is no concrete offer from a country to host that fight as things stand.
Hold your breath waiting for that Pacquiao fight.
How this entire pandemic has affected the career of Manny Pacquiao, what's left of it, is anybody's guess. But I was never actually expecting Manny to be the very next guy that Terence Crawford climbs in the ring with. It just doesn't seem likely.
Never did.
I've maintained throughout that Kell Brook was the likeliest option for Terence Crawford's ring return. I myself don't mind the fight. It's about the best fight you can make under these circumstances, and we all know what these circumstances are. Terence Crawford is being frozen out of the welterweight scene.
And everybody knows it.
Errol and Danny, they're fighting each other. Not that it matters, because even if they weren't, they still, in all likelihood, wouldn't be fighting Terence Crawford. Keith Thurman, his dance card is free.
You're still holding out for a Pacquiao rematch.
Yordenis Ugas is fighting Abel Ramos for some
baby belt,
trinket title, some baby version of the WBA title that Manny Pacquiao holds. I mean, the bottom line here is the situation hasn't changed at 147 pounds for Terence Crawford. Most of the talent over there is dominated by the PBC side of the street, and they're staying on that side of the street. Don't hold your breath looking for any one of those guys to cross over and lock horns with Terence Crawford. It's not going to happen.
As frustrating as that might be,
that is the situation. So if in that situation, Kell Brook is the best name that you can conjure up, I'll take it. I'll take a Kell Brook fight in November for the WBO title. Kell Brook, who is coming off of victories over DeLuca and Zarafa, Repchenko. Kell Brook, who will be coming down in weight for this fight as he has been campaigning as a junior middleweight, will be making a return to welterweight, I presume, for this match.
Challenge for Crawford's title.
In a situation where Terence Crawford is quite literally being frozen out of most any and every decent-sized fight that he can have, why would I criticize him for fighting Kell Brook when Kell Brook's the only one with enough heart to step in the ring with this guy? I have no reason to criticize either Terence Crawford or Kell Brook. If anything, my hat goes off to Brook, because he doesn't have to fight someone like Terence Crawford.
He don't.
He really doesn't. He's been campaigning as a junior middleweight. He could sit right there and have domestic-level fights with Anthony Fowler and Ted Cheeseman.
Liam Smith.
He could lock horns with the winner of Horn versus Zoo, but Kell Brook, he's a little bit more ambitious than that. He wants to fight in a world title fight against the world titleist.
I'll take it.
Enter Terence Crawford. And I'm all for it, because I know what the circumstances are, and I know that there's very little that Terence Crawford and his people can do in this situation when the majority of the talent is isolating themselves from your fighter.
The Brook fight's just about as good as any.
The bigger question here is, how do the people over there at Top Rank and ESPN mean to stage this thing? Are they going to stage this thing as a pay-per-view or regular ESPN or ESPN Plus fight?
You see what happened with Lomachenko and Lopez.
That was a fight that, before the COVID-19 pandemic shut everything down, was set to go down as an ESPN pay-per-view. But that has since changed. I mean, a lot of the talk coming from Bob about how there's no life gate and no closed circuit revenue indicates that if that fight does happen,
might not be a pay-per-view.
So I think about that fight, and I think about this potential fight between Terence Crawford and Kell Brook, and I ask myself, well, if there's no closed circuit revenue, and the fight itself wouldn't be billed as a pay-per-view, what's the cash incentive for Kell Brook to fly across the Atlantic Ocean and come here stateside for that fight? Without the added incentive of a pay-per-view upside, what's supposed to sweeten the deal for Kell Brook? Would Kell Brook still be receptive to a Terence Crawford WBO title fight in the welterweight division if it's not a ESPN pay-per-view?
What about Crawford?
Because throughout this global pandemic, he's made it crystal clear he has no intention of taking a pay cut. He is prepared to sit this entire year out if he has to. Hypothetically speaking, if the Crawford versus Brook fight isn't billed as a pay-per-view, if it airs on either regular ESPN or ESPN Plus, will Crawford get his contracted minimum? Because he's made it quite clear he's not down to take a pay cut.
Loma's taking a pay cut.
In these circumstances, could Terence Crawford change his mind so that the year of 2020 isn't a complete wash? Make no mistake, there's more going on here than just finding an opponent. There is more to reconcile. If the fight's not a pay-per-view, if the fight airs on regular ESPN or ESPN Plus, will Terence Crawford still get his contracted minimum? Because I'm pretty sure that's going to have an effect on his willingness to climb into that ring.
Tell you what, one way or another, we're gonna find out.
Let's carry on. And I've got a man for Gary Russell Jr., brother. Take care of him.
In other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, Frank Warren on Tyson Fury, he ain't fighting Whyte. That ain't happening this year, and next year it ain't gonna happen. He wants Joshua. Would we like to see the fight with all the belts? Absolutely. But if a belt's not on the line, who gives a shit? It's the fight we want to see. Frank Warren continues to add confusion to this situation by constantly name-dropping Anthony Joshua as if he is set to be Tyson Fury's very next opponent should Tyson Fury make it through the third Wilder fight. Assuming there even is a third Wilder
I
fight.
don't know if that's gonna happen either.
Even if Tyson Fury makes it past Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua has two, count them, two, mandatory challengers. So he can't be your excuse, your reason to not fight Dillian Whyte. He can't be the reason you don't fulfill your obligations as a champion.
I don't know what game they're playing.
To where they think that a Joshua fight can be for all the belts. I mean, that's the fight they're saying they want. That's the fight that everybody wants to see. The fight that involves all the belts. Well, in order for all the belts to be involved, you've got to hold on to yours. And if you don't take care of Dillian Whyte,
Your mandatory challenger.
your belt, your world title, may be forfeit. I mean, we see what Anthony Joshua's doing. We see he's fulfilling his obligations as a champion. We see he's doing everything he's got to do to hang on to his world titles. But it seems that Tyson Fury and those in his immediate circle are hell-bent on skirting around, circumventing Dillian Whyte. And I just don't know how that's supposed to work.
How do you hold on to your world title but at the same time skip your mandatory?
Because the orders come down already from the WBC. The deadline, as it were, is set. So how do you hold on to your world title long enough to bring it to a Joshua fight if you don't take care of your mandatory challenger? How does it happen? How does it work?
Yeah, Tyson Fury shouldn't be given a pass for this.
This is looking more and more like a textbook according to Hoyle Duck. I mean, that's what it looks like. Why is Frank Warren running around telling people that Tyson Fury is set to make his ring return before the year is out, with or without Deontay Wilder, but at the same time, he's not going to fight Dillian Whyte. He's not going to fight Dillian Whyte this year or next year.
Why is he saying this stuff?
And how's that supposed to work? Because as far as Anthony Joshua, that guy, he's set to make his ring return towards the end of the year with Kubrat Pulev. So if you're going to make your ring return, with or without Wilder, before the year is out, then why shouldn't it be with Dillian Whyte? Why shouldn't you take care of that so it doesn't get in the way of the Anthony Joshua fight? What are you so afraid of? Listen, I'm not telling you that Dillian Whyte is a better boxer than Tyson Fury. I'm not telling you that he's more accomplished or he has a better resume. Put simply, I'm telling you there is a strong aversion coming from the Tyson Fury side of things when it comes to that fight. And it's obvious. And even if Tyson Fury's growing number of fanboys don't want to address that, here at Ring IQ, we have no choice. If we're going to call it down the middle,
Gotta ask the hard questions.
how does anyone from Tyson Fury to Frank Warren to Bob Arum have such a strong aversion to fighting Dillian Whyte? What's the problem?
Why are they all using Anthony Joshua as an excuse?
His dance card ain't free. He's booked for at least the next two fights. It's looking more and more like Tyson Fury's WBC title will be forfeit once the deadline rolls around, once February 2021 gets here, that if he maintains this aversion to fighting Dillian Whyte, in all likelihood, Dillian Whyte might actually become the WBC's heavyweight champion, because their tune hasn't changed. Talked about this in a previous video, that if Tyson Fury stands on his square and maintains that position, doesn't fight Dillian Whyte, the WBC may strip him. Whether they strip him or he vacates the title willingly, one way or another, that title could end up in the hands of Dillian Whyte. And if it does, that thereby empowers Eddie Hearn to make an in-house unification match for all the alphabet titles. Tyson Fury might still hang on to his figurative lineal status, and he might still be in possession of the Ring Magazine belt, but as far as the alphabet titles, the WBA, the WBC, the WBO, and the IBF, all of those titles might end up on the Matchroom side of things.
Yeah, they might.
But I'll tell you something. Even if it happens that way, to where Tyson Fury isn't in possession of any alphabet titles. That doesn't take the Joshua fight off the table completely. That doesn't take it off the table altogether. Tyson Fury will still be an undefeated, lineal champion in possession of the Ring Magazine title, and in order for you to get all the belts, well, you've got to get all the belts, including the Ring Magazine belt. So the door would still be open for a Joshua versus Fury undisputed heavyweight title fight. And this might be the avenue the Fury people choose to peruse in order to circumvent their obligation to fight Dillian Whyte, whilst at the same time trying to capitalize on the Anthony Joshua fight.
Just give up the green belt.
I fucking told you guys months ago that Tyson Fury won't stand for ceremony, that he won't allow himself to be pinned down by the mandates of a sanctioning body. The same mandates that Anthony Joshua honors regularly without incident are the same mandates that Tyson Fury refuses to abide by. The guy won't stand for ceremony. He won't allow himself to be pinned down and told what to do.
Whether you think that's a good thing or not is irrelevant.
Of course, from the look of it, what he's actually doing is trying to skirt around Dillian Whyte, trying to find a way to get out of that fight, and I don't know why, because if Tyson Fury is every inch as good as his fans think he is, then handling Dillian Whyte really shouldn't be that big of an issue, that big of a problem. That you're saying Fury's coming back before the year is out, with or without Deontay Wilder, well, that'd be the golden opportunity to take care of this guy, yet you still don't want to.
And it's about time more people started asking why.
Yet another layer of that same story involving Tyson Fury, Dillian Whyte, and what may or may not happen. Frank Warren is saying Fury is not fighting Whyte, he wants Joshua. Whyte can fight Dubois.
Fight Dubois for what?
Tyson has made it very clear to me a couple of days ago that he wants to fight again before the end of the year, and I've got to give him a fight by the end of the year. What you've got to look at as well is that fighters like Tyson have been locked down since the end of February, so by December it's been 10 months out of the ring. There are a lot of fighters who need something to aim for, and this isn't very good for them mentally. The only way that Wilder fight works out financially is to do it in front of a crowd. In the meantime, let's think about what works health-wise for Tyson Fury and other fighters. I know Tyson, and it's not in his best interests sitting around doing nothing. He needs something to aim for. We've got to make that happen. If that's what it is, that's what it is. That's the world we're in. I don't want him fighting behind closed doors. For me, he's the biggest box office out there. If we can't deliver the fight with Wilder, then it's something we've got to look at. The problem is the expectation levels, and the last fight was the highest grossing heavyweight fight in Vegas. We've got to somehow get this income to make it work, and if it doesn't, then we've got to do something else. My job from day one, since the day he came in, is to make sure we do the best for Tyson, and we have done the very best for Tyson in every way. He's been great for me, and I've been great for him, and he's turned his whole life around. He's in a good place. For him to remain in a good place, he has to be active. Fury has been ordered by the WBC to face Dillian Whyte, but Warren says he cannot see that happening as the WBC champion has set his heart on a fight with Anthony Joshua, the WBA, WBO, IBO, and IBF champion. He ain't fighting Dillian Whyte because he wants Anthony Joshua.
You see that shit?
You're not fucking fighting Anthony Joshua before the year is out.
Let's get it on. Then while Dillian Whyte waits for his opportunity, a massive fight would be him against Daniel Dubois. That fight makes a lot of sense to me. Tyson Fury is not beholden to him. Tyson Fury is probably the biggest star in boxing at the moment, in my opinion. He's undefeated. He's been named as the #1 heavyweight in the world by Ring Magazine. He will make his choices. Him against Joshua is the fight everyone wants to see. I'm a fan and I want to see it. In my lifetime, I've seen all these heavyweights and now we're blessed with this. I want to see these two guys fight each other and no one should stand in their way. And it's really important that it happens now when these two guys are at their best. It's the best heavyweight fight out there, and it would be the biggest sporting event in this country since the England won the World Cup. It would transcend the sport. It's not going to happen before the end of the year, but it has to happen next year. And that fight should happen in the UK. We should move heaven and earth to make it happen here. Do you see what Frank Warren is doing? He's doubling down on his statements that Tyson Fury won't fight Dillian Whyte anytime this year or next year, but he is set to make a ring return, with or without Deontay Wilder. And what he is offering Dillian Whyte up in place of a title shot he's been waiting far too fucking long for already. What Frank Warren is offering up is a Daniel Dubois fight?
The fuck's Dillian Whyte get out of that?
Dillian Whyte is an established pay-per-view draw and a marquee fighter. This guy can sell some tickets. And if nothing else, he is the WBC's interim champion. He's waited long enough for this title shot. And what you're offering up is an opportunity for your fighter more than an opportunity for Dillian Whyte, because Dillian Whyte can't win anything from Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois is little more than an unproven prospect. Dillian Whyte has nothing to gain from fighting him. So why should he?
For what?
Why should he when he's knocking at the door of becoming a world champion?
And you notice ain't the first time Frank's said this.
Given the olive branch that Frank Warren has recently extended to his longtime domestic rival, Eddie Hearn, I'm getting a sense that Frank Warren would actually rather make Whyte versus Dubois than Joyce versus Dubois. I'm getting that impression because Dillian Whyte is a proven draw. He can sell some pay-per-views and he can sell some tickets. More so than either of those two guys can. You know, Joe Joyce in his very short pro career, he's been all over the place. Guy's had 3 trainers so far.
Doesn't have a following.
Daniel Dubois, for all his promise, he ain't got a following either. Whereas Dillian Whyte is a proven draw. And I'm getting a sense that, I don't know, maybe Frank wants to use Daniel Dubois to shield Tyson Fury from that Dillian Whyte fight. I mean, this isn't the first time he's made this recommendation. I don't know. Maybe he feels Daniel has what it takes to beat Dillian, or maybe he's just putting someone in front of Dillian, anyone, even Daniel Dubois, to protect Tyson Fury. Because it's clear they have an aversion to that fight. You want to skirt around that fight, but stage an interim fight before the year is out. You just don't want it to be Dillian. You're giving the media some fucking sob story about Tyson Fury's mental health and how he needs something to aim for, something to do. Well, why doesn't he do his fucking job and take care of Dillian Whyte? Problem solved.
Yeah, they've been playing that angle up for a while.
Don't give me the cabin fever story about how Tyson Fury's climbing the walls in his apartment or his condo or his house. He's got nothing to do. He needs something to aim for. Okay, aim for Dillian Whyte then.
Because you're supposed to be doing that anyway.
Got old fish eyes offering up Daniel Dubois as if that's some kind of fucking opportunity for Dillian Whyte. As if this guy hasn't waited long enough. You want him to wait a little longer so that Tyson Fury can have his pick of the litter and your fighter can get an interim title opportunity that he doesn't even deserve. He hasn't even had the Joyce fight yet, but you're already talking about putting him in here with Dillian Whyte.
Yeah, fucking right.
I've got nothing against Daniel Dubois, but Dillian Whyte is not beholden to him the way that Frank Warren claims Tyson Fury is not beholden to Dillian Whyte, okay? Dillian don't owe Daniel Dubois nothing, and he certainly don't stand to gain much from fighting him. They're in 2 very different places in their careers. Dillian Whyte is a top 10 heavyweight whether you guys like it or not, and he's got a title shot whether you guys like it or not, whether Frank and Tyson and Bob like it or not.
You've got to deal with him.
How much more are the fight fans going to let Tyson Fury get away with? Because this is ridiculous. You plan on staging an interim fight, with or without Wilder, but you're absolutely certain that it won't be Dillian Whyte.
Why not?
What's the problem? You need to get out there, right? Mental health, cabin fever, it's driving you stir crazy, all that jazz. Okay, you keep busy with Dillian Whyte so long as Dillian Whyte makes it past Alexander Povetkin, but better still, that option shouldn't be off the table, and for some reason it is. The fight fans themselves need to start asking why.